So my work as a whole, I suppose, my whole kind of the wider practice, I have been always interested in the mechanics of photography and how the world is represented through photography. And a lot of my work, the camera exists within the image or within the frame, or is somehow referenced heavily. And by doing so, I think I'm interested in that, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and the camera itself. So I generally kind of want the viewer to think about the idea of taking images. I'm extremely interested in who takes images and why, and what are the function of images, not necessarily only in a professional sense, but and the media sense, but in terms of everyday use and a sociological aspects of photography. Previous works that I've made, one being Decommissioned Camera series, where I've photographed thousands of cameras that had been traded in by their owners in part exchange for new digital cameras. And I photographed all of these cameras individually as catalogue pack shots almost. But they had all the dents and scratches and names and sellotape, so they obviously looked like they were used. They had a life beyond. They're not new cameras. The whole work was kind of a comment on the changing world of photography from analog to digital. This kind of transition, but also about the throwaway society that technologies become redundant, become no longer useful. There's an obsolescence with cameras or any other kind of technology. And we're in this moment where these type of cameras, these kind of plastic, automatic, handy cameras, are not seen as having a value at all. But perhaps in a number of decades we will look back on the idea of analog in real nostalgic terms. But I think there's a definite transition at the minute, possibly because both are still active. You know, people are still using both. But I really was interested in this idea of the object of the camera, the design of the camera, and all that imbued an idea of somebody caring for the camera, using the camera and taking images, and what those images might have been. So the experience of when I installed the piece was that the viewer came into a space and was overwhelmed by basically the three walls of the gallery were covered in photographs of cameras. So there was a physical experience with that. You basically interact with a wall of cameras, and they're not necessarily. I've positioned the camera at slight angle, so the lens is actually not pointing directly at the viewer. It is slightly obtuse. So we're seeing it not as an active piece of machinery. It's a passive object. It's enhancing. Well, my ideas was that it was more about the object or the thingness of it, rather than it being something that's in the process of taking an image, of pointing at the viewer, at a subject.